My brother burned down my restaurant after I refused to give him 50%. Now he's in prison and I used his $250,000 inheritance to rebuild bigger. I spent 3 years working 80-hour weeks to open my cafe. Every dollar came from the inheritance. Grandpa left me, the one person in my family who actually believed I could build something. I hired a small team, found a decent location in a neighborhood that was just starting to turn around, and poured everything I had into making it work. The place wasn't fancy, but it was mine. We served good coffee, homemade pastries, and by year 2, we were finally turning a real profit. Then my younger brother Dylan walked in one Tuesday afternoon. He didn't order anything, just sat down across from me at a corner table and said he wanted to talk business. He told me he'd been thinking about his future, about how he needed something stable, and that he wanted to be made partner in the cafe. 50-50 split, his name on all the paperwork, equal say, in every decision. I asked him what he was bringing to the table. He said family, loyalty, and his time. I reminded him he'd never worked a day in food service, never invested a cent, never even helped me paint the walls when I was setting up. He got quiet, then said that's exactly why family businesses should stay in the family, so everyone benefits. I told him no, firmly, clearly, no room for negotiation. He stared at me for a long moment, nodded slowly, and left without another word. Didn't slam the door, didn't yell, just walked out. I thought that was the end of it. 1 week later, my manager called me at 2 a.m. Her voice was shaking. The cafe was on fire. By the time I got there, 3 fire trucks were already on scene. I stood on the sidewalk watching flames pour out of the windows, watching everything I'd built turn to smoke and ash. The firefighters got it under control, but the interior was completely gutted. Walls blackened, equipment destroyed, nothing salvageable. The fire marshal showed up the next morning to investigate. He walked through the wreckage for 2 hours, taking samples, photographing burn patterns. Then he told me it wasn't an electrical fire like it first appeared. Someone had poured accelerant in 3 different spots, lit them, and walked away. This was arson. I immediately thought of Dylan. The timing was too perfect. I told the investigator about our conversation, about his demand for half the business, about how calm he'd been when he left. They pulled the security footage from the camera I'd installed 6 months earlier after a break-in scare. There it was, clear as day. Dylan and his buddy James breaking in through the back door at 1:30 a.m., carrying gas cans, moving methodically through my cafe. Police arrested both of them within 48 hours. When they searched Dylan's phone, they found texts to James from 3 days after our conversation. If I can't have half, he can't have any of it. Meet me Tuesday night. There were more messages planning the whole thing, discussing which doors were easiest to access when the street would be emptiest. The trial took 4 months to get to court. Dylan's lawyer tried to argue the texts were taken out of context, that Dylan had been drunk and venting, that he never actually intended to follow through. But the prosecution had the footage, the texts, the accelerant residue on clothes found in Dylan's apartment, and James eventually took a plea deal and testified against him. Dylan got 6 years. At sentencing, my parents stood up and begged the judge for leniency. My mom was crying, saying Dylan made a mistake, that he was young and stupid, that I should have just given him what he wanted and none of this would have happened. My dad told the judge I was the one who destroyed this family by pressing charges, that real brothers forgive each other. The judge wasn't moved. 6 years, eligible for parole after 4. But here's what none of them knew during that trial. Grandpa's will had split his house between me and Dylan, 50-50 ownership. Neither of us had wanted to sell it immediately after he died, so it just sat there with our parents living in it rent-free. But with Dylan in prison, I had the legal right to force a partition sale. I filed the paperwork while he was awaiting trial. The house sold for $500,000. Court released my half immediately, $250,000, deposited directly into my account. Dylan's half was frozen by the court, held as a restitution fund for the damages he caused. I took that money and opened a new cafe 3 months ago. Better location, twice the square footage, full kitchen, outdoor seating. We're booked solid every weekend. His $250,000 is still sitting in that court account, and he'll be making restitution payments from prison for the next decade.